Welcome to Poland Daily History. In the studio today, I'm delighted to have with me Anglo-Polish filmmaker Stefan Tompson. Stefan, welcome back.
Hello, Nicholas. Hi.
You obviously grew up in the United Kingdom, and of course there is a huge Polish diaspora in the United Kingdom. And I think now, certainly since Poland joined the European Union, it is probably the largest population of non-Britons in the United Kingdom.
And Polish has recently overtaken Indian as the second most spoken language in the United Kingdom.
Which is incredible when you think about it.
Incredible, and also, in a sense, I think very sad. It's one of those things that's very rarely discussed. When people talk about mass migration, the Polish presence in the UK, it's usually talked about as a sort of net benefit. I think it is a net benefit to the United Kingdom. Though broadly speaking, I oppose mass migration, and I also oppose mass migration of Poles to the United Kingdom. And I actually understand a lot of the complaints and reticence of certain Brits towards that migration, which is, I think, in many cases justified, especially in the case of very small towns which have become where Polish people, obviously, I mean, at the time when they came, the mass migration started in 2004, a lot of them were competing for the jobs of the British working class. So I understand the frustration of the British working class. And I think from a Polish perspective, from Poland's perspective, a great tragedy that we lost people that had been educated on the cost of the Polish taxpayer who left for the United Kingdom, and many of whom will never return, in my opinion, and many of whose children will never be Polish. So in that sense, I think that's one of these aspects that's very marginalised, but it is a great tragedy.
Yes, and that's something that folks seldom don't look at. They look at immigration from the arrival's point of view, but the folk never sort of consider what is left behind.
What is left behind.
And the effect. Yeah. Because it started well before 2004. I mean,
well before.
The first
in
phase,
fact,
probably.
The very first wave is pre-World War II, 1920s. There was a remnant, some of the very last of whom I met, or their children at least. Then there is the migration, the military migration. It's about 100,000 people after 45. Poles, I think, roughly.
Many of whom probably wanted to return to Poland, but because
many
the politics
of whom
didn't
were
allow
very,
that.
very keen to return to Poland. Several very tragic examples of Poles who chose to return, and some of whom it ended in tragedy for. And then we have successive waves, the waves in the 1970s and 80s, the solidarity waves, and in fact, very interesting tensions between that pre-war migration and the solidarity migrations, whereas one was sort of military and political, the other was sort of intellectual in nature. And then finally we have the illegal migration of the 90s. Again, we're talking about tens of thousands of people, and then finally 2004 and the entire period after that, and then officially the count goes to 965,000 Poles living in the United Kingdom, probably closer to 1.5 million, depending on how one counts it and depending on any given moment.
Well, it's very hard in the United Kingdom to know because, of course, rather bizarrely, the United Kingdom government doesn't count people coming and people going. So
No.
how anybody has any clue, other than sort of anecdotal, and the fact that wherever in certain parts, as you were saying, or in certain parts of England, in certain towns, you do find lots of Polish folk.
Yeah.
And you know, you have sort of found lots of Polish parish priests and sort of other very welcome people, given the inability of the English to produce Catholic priests. But that's a slightly different. Slightly off topic.
Yeah.
They're very very welcome, of course. But yes, I think it must be looking at it from a Polish perspective, because this is what the government have often said: please come back because we need the talent. We've educated people, and they've sort of chosen to make their life elsewhere, and that I think it must be very frustrating.
Definitely.
And you have these small towns, of course, where sort of all the young people with talent have gone, either to Warsaw or to the bigger cities, or indeed more problematic perhaps to the United Kingdom, Germany, and other countries. And I don't see that's likely to change in the future.
No, and though apparently 100,000 Poles have. The number of Poles in the United Kingdom has decreased by about 100,000 in the past 2 years, if the latest studies are to be believed. How that was measured, I don't know. That was a report I read on recently that suggested that Poles are returning. But as you say, I believe that many of the people who left after 2004, the period of time that has passed, obviously the very fascinating thing is to look at how the status of Poles in the United Kingdom has changed since 2004, from arriving as and having mainly fairly low-paid jobs. The Polish migration has really increased its status in the United Kingdom, and the perception of Poles definitely has also changed. I think they very much cracked that middle class aspect of British society, which is obviously a wonderful thing for those people who have chosen to leave, but it suggests their return is less and less likely, which I think is a very sad thing. But I understand why they have chosen to make their lives there.
And historically, though, we've had some quite eminent Poles in the United. I mean, the one everybody thinks, of course, is Joseph Conrad. Joseph Conrad. I mean, so this is probably heresy on this programme, but I find him impenetrable in English. His style of English, I just find very, very hard to get to grips with. And I read quite a lot, but there's just something about his English. I just find it's sort of rather hard to wade through.
I reread Heart of Darkness quite recently, which I thought was very wonderful. As you say, there are easier things to read. For someone who learnt English when I think he was 19,
no, I'm not disputing his. He's a far greater linguist than I will ever be.
A wonderful. I mean, a very impressive linguist. The fact that he a second language and really, but as you say, no, I can understand that he's not to everyone's taste.
No.
But definitely I think Poles have made generally a positive contribution in the United Kingdom. But from a Polish perspective, I would like the Poles to return. I think that, and for that to happen, I believe that in fact Poland must learn from primarily the tax regimes and the bureaucratic systems of the United Kingdom and other places where Poles have chosen to go. Because in many cases I don't think they've pursued, I mean, social transfers have been one of the main policies of the Polish government at the moment, but I believe that one of the main reasons they left wasn't for social transfers.
No, I think it's particularly younger people starting out, it's the complication. They want to run a business here.
No, it's a difficult thing to do.
Very, compared to, say, running a business in the UK.
Yeah.
Even simple things like filling in a corporation tax return, if you have a little company, or filling in a tax return, or anything, or filing things with the company's registry. In England, the UK now, it's so blissfully simple. And straightforward and quick and efficient and costs you virtually nothing. I mean, that's the other point.
It is.
Whereas here, you do get involved in a far greater degree of bureaucracy.
Though it is getting simplified. And also, I mean, to perhaps finish this on a happier note, the situation in Poland is nowhere near as tragic as, say, Bulgaria, where in the past few years, 1/4 of the population has left, which is an astounding statistic. I mean, 1/4 of the Bulgarian population has packed up and left.
If you think of a quarter of a population leaving, that's something you normally associate, say, with a country which has been torn by famine and plague and warfare, and everybody's had to just move.
Absolutely. No, but this is
Europe.
A country in the European Union, where 1/4 of the people have packed up and left. I mean, astounding. And in Poland, I mean, after all, we have a terrible demographic situation, but nonetheless, I mean, 1/4 of our population has not left.
Closer to 10%, probably.
Probably, which isn't. I mean, it's not great.
It's still quite a huge number.
It's more than one would like, but it's not 1/4 yet.
Yes, but as you say, the conditions here are improving, so that's probably
substantially.
So
the rise.
So there's probably less urge for people to leave, which is probably a positive note on which to end this section. Thank you, Stefan.
Thank you, Nicholas. Thanks.